Donald Trump's cabinet picks under the spotlight as a week of Senate confirmation hearings kick off in Washington. Gambia's information minister quits in protest against Yahya Jammeh's refusal to hand over power. And how one pill could prevent cardiovascular disease. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin on Capitol Hill, where confirmation hearings for U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet picks are underway. Alabama's Senator Jeff Sessions, who Trump has nominated for the post of Attorney General, is one of 8 nominees who will face confirmation hearings this week. Democrats have raised concerns about Sessions' past record on civil rights and his headline stand on immigration. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has named his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as a senior advisor. Trump transition team officials say Kushner's role will involve working on trade and the Middle East. A lawyer for Kushner, who is married to Trump's daughter, Ivanka, says he plans to resign as chief executive of his family's lucrative real estate firm and divest all stock holdings and foreign investments. Donald Trump's inauguration is just 10 days away, and his transition team is preparing to hit the ground running on January the 20th, when he will be sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. VOA's Elizabeth Shanath looks back at key highlights of the transitional period that began after he was elected president in November.
I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me.
It's one of the pillars of American democracy, the peaceful transition of power from one commander-in-chief to another.
We talked about
on the heels of his victory, President-elect Trump met with President Obama at the White House, where both pledged to cooperate going forward.
We now are going to want to do everything we can to help you succeed, because if you succeed, then the country succeeds.
Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you, and I look forward to being with you many, many more times in the future. Thank you, sir.
The process of transition between incoming and outgoing administrations is challenging and cumbersome, but that didn't stop Trump from going on a cross-country victory tour to thank his supporters.
They're saying, as president, he shouldn't be doing rallies, but I think we should, right?
He also broke with tradition on several cabinet appointments, nominating Washington outsiders such as ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State, and financier and former Goldman Sachs executive Steven Mnuchin as Treasury Secretary. And in his signature style, President-elect Trump continued tweeting, with harsh words for his critics and praise for others, like Russian President Vladimir Putin, despite U.S. intelligence reports of Russian hacking and attempts to influence the 2016 election. Despite a somewhat unpredictable transition process that will include Senate hearings for the cabinet nominees, experts say the incoming administration is well prepared to assume office later this month.
Certainly, we've seen some unprecedented actions with this president-elect, but by and large, in terms of naming their people, we're in pretty good shape, but that's no measuring stick for success. President-elect Trump needs his team on the field on Inauguration Day, prepared and ready to go.
All eyes are focused on the nation's capital as the next president of the United States prepares to take the oath of office in the coming days. Elizabeth Cherneff, VOA News, Washington.
Well, President-elect Donald Trump has promised to crack down on illegal immigration and deport 2 to 3 million undocumented immigrants who, in his words, have criminal records. Michael Sullivan reports that the battle over immigration enforcement and reform has moved to the states and cities, and some are gearing up for a battle with the federal government.
President-elect Donald Trump outlined his immigration plan in August in Phoenix.
Anyone who has entered the United States illegally is subject to deportation. That is what it means to have laws and to have a country. Otherwise, we don't have a country.
Trump has since walked that back to 2 to 3 million undocumented immigrants with criminal records. But to many, that is not reassuring. More than 2.7 million undocumented immigrants were deported under President Barack Obama. And activists have taken to the streets to protest what they fear will be stronger enforcement under Trump.
I do recognize that he will be the president for the next 4 years. It's our reality. We want to find common ground where we can find common ground, but we're also prepared to defend the prosperity of California.
De Leon says that prosperity is fueled by the state's immigrant-friendly policies. California has retained former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, now a private lawyer, to fight the Trump administration on issues from immigration to climate change. Some cities, including Los Angeles, limit cooperation with the federal agency known as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE.
Today, I think we're sending a message that Los Angeles is united for immigrants' rights, that we're going to stand strong. We're not colluding with ICE. We're protecting our people, that Los Angeles is one family and one community.
Despite fears surrounding campaign rhetoric, Luis Quinones, a member of Trump's Hispanic Advisory Council, tells VOA the only people who have anything to fear are criminal immigrants and religious extremists who would do harm.
We are going to be targeting extreme Muslims who don't work within the true religion or the peaceful solutions of the world. You know, anyone who wants to do harm, they're not wanted. They're not welcome. We'll pursue them.
California is one of 12 states that allow undocumented residents to obtain a driver's license, and local leaders say states and cities, many controlled by Democrats, will do more. Legal immigrants are divided. Some oppose the plan to step up enforcement, deport criminal aliens, and build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Others support it.
I don't think anybody legal would want to see illegal immigrants, especially who committed crimes, to stay in this country.
Undocumented residents make up 3 to 4% of the U.S. population. As federal enforcement intensifies, local leaders say the debate has moved from Washington to America's cities. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
We're turning now to Africa and the political turmoil ongoing in Gambia. The country's communications minister, Sheriff Bojang, has resigned his post. It is the first high-profile cabinet defection since President Yahya Jammeh refused to step down after losing the election in December. In a statement, Bojang says Jammeh's efforts to remain in power are an attempt to subvert the express will of the Gambian electorate. The presidents of Nigeria, Sierra Leone and Liberia are set to visit Jammeh on Wednesday in a second attempt to press him to relinquish powers. An ECOWAS delegation led by Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf visited Gambia in December but failed to persuade Jammeh to step down. The West African bloc has since said it would take all necessary steps to uphold the result of the election. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, tens of thousands of people have been uprooted in recent months by spiraling violence between a militia group and government security forces. The United Nations says many more are at risk of being displaced as the violence shows no signs of abating. More than 100,000 people across the provinces of Kasai, Kasai Central and Kasai Oriental have fled their homes since August due to fighting between government forces and the militia group Kamwina Nsapu. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says the violence has also disrupted education, shattered health centers, and halted farming across the 3 provinces. More than 100 people have died in several clashes since August 2016. Well, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni is being accused of grooming his son to take over the top job. The latest criticism follows Museveni's decision on Tuesday to appoint his son, Major General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, as his senior presidential advisor. The military says General Kainerugaba, who has been the head of the Army Special Forces, was moved in a normal change in command. But political rivals have regularly accused the 72-year-old president of handing powerful positions to members of his family and adopting an increasingly autocratic style, charges his supporters dismiss. His brother Salim Saleh is another presidential advisor, and his wife, Janet Museveni, is a Minister of Education. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vincent Makori. Coming up, a new study finds that mammograms may be overused and may not always detect successfully breast cancer. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
A park in New York City. Does its dirt hold clues to new medicines? It might, according to geneticists at Rockefeller University, like Sean Brady, who are digging around to find bacteria in their own backyard.
Not just antibiotics, but a large number of our pharmaceutical agents, the things we use in the clinic to cure cancer, immunosuppression, antibacterial agents, come originally from studying bacteria. And so the idea here is to guide you to not only those old molecules, but guide you to bacteria that might produce new molecules that have new activities.
Brady says it's not necessary to travel to exotic locations to find clues to medical research.
Almost any molecule you can think of that might have come from bacteria, so if you don't know those types of molecules, things like vancomycin, the antibiotic of last resort, we can find molecule or genes that we think would encode molecules like that.
Over half of all medicines used today were inspired by or derived from bacteria, animals, or plants. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Well, it's time for Health Report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Madu with new information on mammograms. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Vincent. Well, a new study says 1 in 3 women diagnosed with breast cancer detected by a mammogram are treated unnecessarily. The study, based on Danish medical records, says the screenings led to so-called false positives in as many as a third of women who have tumors that seemed harmless, and the regular mammograms did not catch more advanced cancers. In an editorial accompanying the study, the American Cancer Society's chief medical officer, Dr. Otis Browley, says better tests are needed to differentiate between tumors and harmless growth. The American Cancer Society recommends that women get annual mammograms from age 45 to 54, followed by screenings every other year after that, while the American College of Radiology recommends annual mammograms beginning at 40. The study was published in the Annals of Internal Medicines. Now, 1 billion people worldwide are affected by cardiovascular disease. A U.S. task force and a large international study conclude that people who don't have the disease but are at risk of getting it could benefit from taking a daily pill. VOA's Cara Pearson has more.
More than 17 million people will die from diseases of the heart and blood vessels this year. Even more have these diseases, which are collectively called cardiovascular disease.
The risk factors for cardiovascular disease include high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, and your age.
Family history is also a factor. To combat the disease, many doctors recommend taking a daily cholesterol-lowering drug called a statin.
A statin is a drug that helps reduce the production of cholesterol in the liver. It primarily works by lowering LDL cholesterol, which is the so-called bad cholesterol.
Owens works on the U.S. Preventative Task Force that continuously reviews information on a host of diseases. The task force now recommends that adults age 40 and older at risk for cardiovascular disease take a daily statin. The recommendations appear in the Journal of the American Medical Association. But it's not just Americans who can benefit from statins. An earlier study published in the New England Journal of Medicine showed that most people at risk for cardiovascular disease would be better off taking one. The study involved a racially diverse group of people on 6 continents, living in 21 countries, and it included both men and women. All were at risk for developing cardiovascular disease. In a 5-year period, those taking a statin reduced the risk of heart attack, stroke, or heart-related deaths by 24%.
The benefits of statins are a reduction in heart attacks, strokes, and death. The harms of statins we judge based on our very comprehensive review of the literature to be small. And in patients who are at elevated risk for cardiovascular disease, the benefits outweigh the harms.
The researchers say this shows a very simple approach to treatment that can be provided around the world. Have older adults at risk of developing cardiovascular disease take a daily statin. Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
Now, it is a testament to the danger of the problem that almost weekly there is news to report on the search for new antibiotics. Scientists around the world are working to find new drugs as bacteria continue to evolve ways to make the old ones obsolete. That race is leading some scientists to some strange, dirty, and even dangerous places as they search for new drugs. VOA's Kevin Enoch reports.
These Russian scientists are crawling through the dark on a mission to fight drug-resistant microbes.
We work both with Siberian and Baikal region caves because many of the caves in Baikal region are older than the Baikal Lake, over 30 million years old. Our research is dedicated to how the bacteria had formed and had been preserved for 30 to 40 million years and what they produce.
Why here? The researchers say this place is not just old, but also biologically unique, home to hundreds, maybe thousands of fish, bugs, and bacteria that can't be found anywhere else.
Baikal is a unique ecosystem which allows us to find plenty of unique organisms with unique characteristics which can be used to create new technologies or biomedical applications.
It's a throwback to the golden age of antibiotics, when scientists found effective antibacterial drugs like penicillin lurking in soil and mold. Microbes the researchers have found here are proving effective against resistant bacteria like Staphylococcus.
Now our goal is to enhance the number of antibiotics for practical use. We have a large collection, but we need to be very focused and not waste resources to bring a final antibiotic to an ultimate consumer.
There's no timeline for when any drugs developed here will hit the market, but with resistance on the rise, even the potential for new drugs is cause for hope. Kevin Enoch, VOA News, Washington.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, outgoing U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is vowing to continue speaking out on climate change issues while touting what he regarded as one of the Obama administration's top accomplishments, the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Donald Trump's decision to nominate ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State means the State Department could be run by a lifelong oil executive. If Tillerson wins state confirmation, he would have a big say over whether the Trump administration withdraws from the Paris Climate Treaty. Well, we didn't have the right soundbite from John Kerry, but he did make an analogy of Twitter, which is seen as a response to President-elect Donald Trump, whose cabinet selection signal pointed policy shift on climate change. Now, according to Kerry, the United States and more than 120 other countries, representing more than 80% of the world's emissions, have joined the Paris Agreement. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, we take a closer look at the Martin Luther King Memorial. We'll be right back.
So this will not be allowed wherever and by whatever means it comes. So this is the message that we want to pass. We have been
Notre unité et notre solidarité dans la perspective de la construction.
Welcome back. We're introducing a new series today called Did You Know? We'll be taking you on a tour of famous places in and around Washington, always adding some special bit of information that we're sure you haven't heard before. We start our tour at the memorial to U.S. Civil Rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., whose birthday is celebrated each year on the third Monday of January as a national holiday. This year, he would have been 88 years old. VOA's Steve Miller reports.
The address for the Martin Luther King Memorial is 1964 Independence Avenue. The number commemorates the year the Civil Rights Act was signed into law. Thanks to Martin Luther King's efforts to get the law passed, racial segregation was made illegal in the U.S., whether in schools, the workplace, restaurants, or in any other public facility. King most embodied the struggle of African Americans for equal rights a half-century ago.
I have a dream.
At the March on Washington in 1963, he gave his historic I Have a Dream speech before a crowd estimated at 250,000 people. The words from that speech inspired the design of King's Memorial. Out of a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. That mountain stands over 9 meters high, the stone of hope carved from it. King's likeness stares out over the tidal basin, overlooking the memorial to President Thomas Jefferson. Did you know that it was the design of a Chinese artist that was chosen from the almost 1,000 entries? The sculptor's name is Lei Xin. The monument is surrounded by a wall engraved with famous quotes of King. This is from his 1964 speech for the Nobel Peace Prize. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. That is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant. He wrote these words, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," while in jail in Alabama after being arrested for his civil rights protests. King's sculpture is partially incomplete, symbolizing the life that was cut short by an assassin's bullet in 1968, when King was just 39 years old. But he had already changed the course of American history, and he still inspires people around the world. Steve Miller, VOA News, Washington.
Well, staying in the U.S., hundreds of thousands of visitors will be in Washington, D.C. on January 20th for the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump. In addition to watching the swearing-in on the steps of the Capitol, many are also planning to attend other events like the inaugural parade and various balls. A couple of Washington businesses are getting ready for the crowds. VOA's Deborah Block tells us more.
From luxury hotel rooms to Trump memorabilia, hotels and souvenir shops in Washington are gearing up for the president-elect supporters who are coming from across the United States. Although some hotels still have rooms available, Washington's top-rated and most expensive hotel, the Four Seasons, is sold out, with special, much higher prices for the inauguration. This presidential suite costs $16,000 a night, and with a 4-day minimum stay during inauguration week, the bill is a whopping $64,000.
You have to have a certain standard of living to be able to afford during inauguration a 4-night minimum with, a starting rate of $2,000. We have people from, political parties. We have people from the business, side of things here, and we also have, people from banks, people from all over, really every single trade.
Are you prepared to take the oath, Senator?
Notably missing will be many Hollywood celebrities who were prominent here during both of President Obama's inaugurations. Most of the guests for the Trump inauguration will come from states that supported the president-elect, but there will be a few international visitors. With the high price tag come extra services.
We've got hand warmers available for them, right? Hats and things like that, just things to make it more convenient for them.
The hotel is also providing a daily gift to each room, culminating with this leather stationery box embossed in 24-karat gold with the symbol of the presidential seal. While some inauguration visitors are receiving expensive gifts, others are buying cheaper souvenirs themselves. Here at the privately owned Washington Welcome Center, the store manager expects Trump items will be a big seller during Inauguration Week. The hottest items are Trump baseball caps.
The Make America Great Again hat. Basically, the baseball caps are selling. I mean, we can't keep them on the shelves.
Some were purchased by these college students from Georgia who are Trump supporters.
I think he's got some good qualities, and I know he has his bad qualities too, and there's a lot of differences that people don't agree with. I think he'll bring a lot to the country in his economic status, and the way he's a businessman, I think he can do a lot for the economy.
He's not the only one talking about politics in the store. After the election, both Republicans and Democrats have been expressing their views.
The Republicans, they will come in and they speak on money issues, whereas though the Democrats come in, they'll seek out the problems, and we'll talk about, what's on the news, if they're trying to cut Obamacare.
And although many in strongly Democratic Washington, D.C. are not happy to have Donald Trump in the White House, his supporters at the inaugural activities may be sending postcards back home, celebrating their choice for president. Deborah Block, VOA News, Washington.
So if you don't have a hotel booked for you, you probably have to stay somewhere away from Washington, D.C. And that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, African News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa, between Africa 0300 and 0600 UTC. That's Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night. Chuck, you could rent.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords. Here is Ambassador Ryan Crocker speaking about Iraq.
We're at an extremely delicate time throughout the region, certainly in Iraq, as the Iraqis struggle to form a government that needs to be inclusive enough that it will bring the Sunnis back into the process.
Delicate. Something that is delicate can break easily. The ambassador says that the situation in the region must be handled very carefully.
Delicate also can mean pretty. A delicate object is pleasing to look at and carefully made.
Now, the next time you hear the word delicate, you will know what this news word means, and you can use it in a conversation.